All right, apparently I am public enemy number one. Now, this is based upon the people that basically want us to eat bugs and soybean gruel for the rest of our lives. This is, the folks that are involved in what's called the Eat Lancet Commission. Now, these are the people that have developed the so-called diet for planetary health, which is basically pseudo-vegetarian diet where you're allowed to eat something like 2 eggs a week and a few molecules of red meat. It's some ridiculous diet. And it's interesting. Myself was named as number one of the top 20 or 25, and in that list include other folks that you may know like Nina Teicholz, Ken Berry, Frederick Lavoie. This is, a little bit disturbing. Now, for instance, some of you guys remember that I've had sort of people that are critical of my nutritional beliefs saying that I should be thrown in jail. We have an example of Dr. Joel Furman a few years ago on a particular podcast saying that I should be put in jail because I'm telling people to eat meat.
To me, you're getting a lot of bad information that's killing people. And those people should be put in jail.
Uh-oh. Sean Baker, you need to be put in jail.
That's right.
We've seen a debate I had with a particularly unhinged, wacko vegan screaming that she's going to be the one that puts me in jail.
You're advocating because I'm not willing to change my position. I should be jailed.
You should be in jail, and I will be the reason for that being illegal. Speciesism has to end. It's just like racism towards animals. Not being vegan is not okay, and Sean Baker is an animal user.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And, while I kind of don't really take these threats too seriously, we have to realize that, when people start painting you as this evil villain, disinformation, misinformation specialist that deserves to be put in jail, then some people will act on that. And we've seen that recently with some of the stuff that's been going on in the news, and I won't go into that in detail, but it's safe to say it's somewhat of a disturbing trend. What I've been trying to do, and in many ways I've been successful at it, is basically help people with their health, help people overcome disease, get healthy. I'm a huge believer in eating whole, nutritious food. I obviously lean towards meat as the main sort of thing. I don't sit there and say everybody needs to be on a carnivore diet, but I think it can be very useful for many, many people, and it has been. And, also, I'm obviously big on exercise and sleep and all these things that most people would agree with, I think. But the fact that you have this group that wants to come out there and say, this is the only way that we will accept that you will eat this pseudo-vegan vegetarian diet and you will be happy about it. Remember, these people are funded by groups like the World Economic Forum and some of the actors that are around that. Perhaps some people would say less than pure motivations, right? So these are things we're having to deal with, and they have a lot of power behind that, and they in many ways manipulate the media. They manipulate even some of the science, and so we have to deal with that. So it's something that's kind of interesting and disturbing. My friend Frederick Lavoie, who's a scientist out of Belgium, has written some of this stuff up. And what he discovered was that the reason they're doing this is back in 2020 or so, 2019, when they tried to push this Eat Lancet diet on the planet, it was resoundingly shut down as something that would be nutrient deficient. They lost the public battle in large part due to, folks like myself and others that were saying this is just not acceptable. This is not what we're going to do. So they're getting ready to roll out their second version. And so what they're trying to do is in advance smear all of us that would be critical of that so that our voices are, somehow discounted as these crackpot crazies that don't know what they're talking about, conspiracy theorists, and so on and so forth. That's not the first time I've been had to overcome stuff like that. And so what we'll see is an attack on freedom of speech in some regards around this stuff. You will see people being shadow banned and their voices being muted and muffled. That's something I've dealt with for honestly a decade now. It's sometimes a little frustrating when you see other messages being amplified. If you're out there selling the garbage junk food, you get promoted with a lot of force behind it when you're trying to do the right thing. So this is something that we need to fight back against. Also, some of you have said that this is something you should be proud of. Being named on the top of the enemies list for these people that have this goal of having us all eating bugs and soybean slop. And I'm certainly happy that I've made a difference, but at the same time, it's a little bit disconcerting to think that there are people that are targeting you. How far they would be willing to take that is unknown, and particularly in this day and age. So I'm not going to be silenced. I'm going to continue to speak what I feel is the truth, and hopefully we can have a scientific and adult-like discussion around this. And if you disagree, you're welcome to disagree, but the results are what they are. I mean, what I'm talking about has gotten a lot of people results, and I'm sure you folks that are watching this, and I'm sure inevitably there'll be comments around this saying that, we are helping people. And I think that's at the end of the day. I personally don't care what you eat, as far as that's concerned. And that's, obviously the major area of contention around me. I like, as a physician, and remember, this is what my profession, is, and why I went into medical school, was to help people get healthy. And if you get there through X, Y, or Z diet, it doesn't really matter. It just matters that you get healthy. And the fact that we find these diets that seem to be very efficacious, and a lot of people want to shut that down because it detracts from their ability to profiteer off of your illness. These drug companies and some of these hospital systems, they like you being dependent upon this. First of all, I think it's important that you share our messages. If you like what we're saying, share our messages that we put out there on social media. That goes for myself and any of the other folks that, are trying to get these messages out there. Also, if any way you can support what we're doing. Like I said, and I've mentioned this, and I know some of you guys are probably tired of hearing about this, but this is, kind of my life's work at this point. Our company, Rivero, we are reversing people's disease. We're taking care of their metabolic health. We're doing it in a way that is not only helping people tremendously for sometimes the first time in their life, but it's also, doing it in a much more economical way than the drug system is. That basically we have this pharmaceutical oligarchy that kind of runs healthcare throughout the world, and we are deviating from that, which is obviously making some people unhappy. If you know patients or people that you think could benefit, please send them our way. We'd love to help them. And additionally, we're right now doing a funding push so that we can expand the company, if that interests you as well. If you're interested in having a stake ownership in what we're doing, check it out, via our Republic campaign. That'll be going on for the next period of time until we sell it out. So we need the support to continue to get this message out there. This is something that is going to take all of us doing in order to make the difference that we want to make. It's not going to come from the government. It's not going to come from, some of these, health companies and corporations, which, again, the reason that they're existing there is basically to profit off of your illness. All right, guys, you have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon.